The Villani homeworld of Velios Prime had never known war until today. Captain Zara pressed her delicate blue hands against the control panel of the emergency broadcast station, watching the invasion fleet grow larger on her screens. 200 massive Krex warships hung in space around her beautiful planet like dark metal vultures waiting to feast. The Villani were a peaceful people who had spent thousands of years building gardens instead of weapons. Their cities were made of crystal and light. Their technology focused on healing and growing rather than destroying. They had explored the stars to share knowledge and beauty with other species, never imagining that some beings used their advanced ships for conquest and death. Zara's long ears trembled as another explosion shook the orbital defense platform. The Krex had already destroyed 3 Villani colony worlds in the past month, enslaving the survivors and strip-mining the planets for resources. Now they had come for the crown jewel of Villani civilization, the home world where 40 billion souls lived in harmony with nature. The defense coordinator's voice crackled through the communication system with barely controlled panic. "Captain Zara, the orbital shields are failing. The Krex are jamming our evacuation ships and targeting civilian centers. We estimate 6 hours before total planetary bombardment begins." Zara closed her large violet eyes and tried to think. The Villani had sent diplomatic messages to the Krex Empire for weeks, offering anything they wanted in exchange for peace. The Krex response had been simple: surrender completely or watch every Villani world burn. There would be no negotiation. No mercy, no middle ground. Activate the Galactic emergency beacon, Zara ordered her communications officer. Send the distress signal on all frequencies to every known civilization in this sector of space. The young Villani technician looked confused. "Captain, our intelligence reports say most species will not risk conflict with the Krex Empire. They are too powerful and too ruthless for anyone to challenge directly." Zara knew this was true. The Krex had built their empire by crushing anyone who opposed them. Other civilizations had learned to stay away from Krex space and avoid attracting their attention. But the Villani had no choice now, except to ask for help and hope someone would answer. She began recording the emergency transmission that would be broadcast across hundreds of star systems. "This is Captain Zara of the Villani Republic speaking. On behalf of 40 billion peaceful beings facing extinction, the Krex Empire has invaded our homeworld without provocation or warning. Our people have no weapons and no knowledge of warfare. We are asking any civilized species to provide assistance in evacuating our civilian population or defending our planet from total destruction." The message continued with technical details about Villani location, the size of the Krex fleet, and the timeline before orbital bombardment would begin. Zara tried to keep her voice steady even as more explosions lit up the space around her station. She ended with a simple plea. "We have children and families who have never harmed anyone. Please, help us if you can." The transmission went out across the galaxy at faster-than-light speed, reaching dozens of civilizations within hours. The responses began coming back quickly, and most of them crushed what little hope the Villani had left. The Altarian Republic sent polite regrets, explaining they could not risk war with the Krex Empire over a species they barely knew. The Zenthon Federation offered to accept 50,000 Villani refugees, but warned they would close their borders if the Krex followed. The Killian Assembly promised to remember the Villani fondly after they were gone. A few minor species offered token assistance. The Helix Consortium would send 1 hospital ship. The Vorthan League could spare 3 escort vessels for evacuation duty. The Primarch Collective offered to negotiate with the Krex on the Villani's behalf, though everyone knew such negotiations would accomplish nothing. Zara felt despair settling over her like a cold blanket. The galactic community that the Villani had believed in, the network of civilized species working together for mutual benefit, was nothing but an illusion. When real danger came, when people needed help desperately, everyone looked away and protected themselves. 17 light-years away from the dying Volani world, Admiral Jake Morrison received the distress signal at Luna Station orbiting Earth's moon. The human officer was tall and broad-shouldered, with graying hair and scars on his hands from years of military service. He read the transmission twice, then called his senior staff to an emergency meeting. The conference room filled with human officers wearing the dark blue uniforms of the Earth Defense Fleet. Colonel Ryan Mitchell commanded the Marine Forces, his weathered face serious as he studied tactical displays of the Volani system. Commander Lisa Harper ran intelligence operations, her sharp eyes analyzing every detail of Krek's capabilities and positioning. "The situation is straightforward," Morrison told his staff. "A peaceful civilization is about to be exterminated by an aggressive empire. They're asking for help and getting turned away by everyone else in the galaxy." Colonel Mitchell leaned forward in his chair. "Sir, our intelligence on the Krek's empire is limited. We know they've conquered 12 star systems in the past 5 years, and their military doctrine focuses on overwhelming force against civilian targets. They use fear as their primary weapon," Commander Harper added her assessment. "The Volani have advanced technology but zero military capability. They're describing their situation as hopeless, and from what I can see, they're correct. 200 Krek's warships against a species that's never fought a war in their entire history." Morrison stood and walked to the large display screen showing a tactical map of known space. The Volani system was marked in red, surrounded by the expanding territory of the Krek's empire. The Volani sent their distress call to every species. "In the sector, how many have offered real assistance?" "None, sir," Harper replied. "A few token gestures, but no one is willing to commit military forces against the Krek's. The general consensus seems to be that interfering would just make the Krek's angry and create more problems." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment, thinking about Earth's history and the hard lessons humanity had learned about the cost of ignoring evil. "Colonel, how quickly can we deploy a full battle group to the Volani system?" Mitchell checked his tactical computer. 48 hours to prep and launch, 1 week transit time at maximum faster than light speed. "But, sir, we're talking about committing major military assets to defend a species we've never even met." Morrison smiled grimly. "Colonel, humanity has a simple rule about bullies. When someone bigger picks on someone smaller, we make it our problem. The Krek's empire is about to learn why Earth is classified as a death world." Within 6 hours, 3 human battle groups were preparing for immediate deployment to Volani space. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Valios system like predators emerging from deep space. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiance, watching his tactical displays light up with information about the battlefield ahead. 3 heavy cruisers, 15 destroyers, and 3 carrier groups spread out in perfect formation behind him. Commander Lisa Harper piloted the destroyer UNS Falcon ahead of the main fleet, her ship's advanced sensors, scanning everything in the system. The Volani homeworld hung in space like a blue and green jewel, but the beauty was marred by the dark shapes of Krek's warships surrounding it like a metal cage. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the Krek's fleet," Harper reported over the communication link. 200 ships as reported, but their weapons are focused on planetary bombardment rather than fleet engagement. They're not expecting any serious resistance." Morrison nodded grimly. The Krek's had probably never faced real opposition before, just peaceful species who surrendered after token resistance. "Commander, establish contact with the Volani Defense Coordinator. Let them know help has arrived." Captain Zara was in the emergency command center deep beneath Valios Prime when the impossible message came through. A human voice spoke in accented but clear Volani language, translated by advanced computer systems. "Volani Command, this is Commander Lisa Harper of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received your distress signal and have arrived to provide assistance." Zara's violet eyes widened in shock. She had never heard of humans before, and the idea that anyone would actually respond to their plea with military force seemed like a miracle. Commander Harper, we are grateful for any help you can provide. We have evacuation ships standing by for civilian transport, but the Krex fleet is blocking all escape routes. Captain Zara, please understand that we're not here just for evacuation, Harper replied calmly. We're here to eliminate the threat to your people completely. Can you provide tactical information about Krex ship positions and defensive capabilities? The Volani captain felt confused by the human's words. Eliminate the threat completely? She was talking about 200 warships from one of the galaxy's most powerful empires. Commander, I appreciate your confidence, but the Krex Empire has military technology far beyond anything we've ever seen. Perhaps we should focus on saving as many civilians as possible. Colonel Ryan Mitchell's voice cut into the conversation from his transport ship. Captain Zara, with respect, we need to discuss military strategy. My Marines are preparing for orbital assault operations against Krex positions. We need target priorities and civilian evacuation zones marked clearly. Zara felt overwhelmed by the rapid pace of human planning. These beings were talking about assault operations and target priorities as if they were planning a simple supply mission. Colonel Mitchell, I must ask how many ships you've brought to face the Krex fleet. Even with advanced technology, numbers matter in space combat. We have 21 capital ships and appropriate support vessels. Morrison's voice joined the conference call. Captain, we understand your concern about the odds, but human military doctrine is designed specifically for situations like this. We specialize in overwhelming force projection against hostile targets. Lieutenant Commander Nick Rogers established his liaison position on the Volani command station, materializing through the transport beam with his full combat gear. The humans had insisted on face-to-face coordination, claiming it improved tactical efficiency. Rogers was typical of his species, tall and heavily muscled, moving with predatory grace that made the gentle Volani nervous. Captain Zara, I need to understand your defensive capabilities, Rogers said, studying the command center's displays. What weapon systems do you have available? And how many trained military personnel can support our operations? Zara felt embarrassed by the question. Lieutenant Commander, the Volani have no weapons systems and no military personnel. We are a peaceful people who have never needed such things. Our ships are designed for exploration and trade, not combat. Rogers stared at her for a long moment, clearly trying to process this information. Captain, you're telling me that your entire civilization has no military force whatsoever? No defensive installations? No trained soldiers? No weapons of any kind? That is correct, Zara replied. We had hoped other civilized species would help us negotiate with the Krex, perhaps find a peaceful solution to this conflict. The human officer looked like he was struggling with a concept too alien for his mind to accept. Captain, the Krex have already killed millions of your people and are preparing to destroy your homeworld. There is no negotiating with an enemy that refuses to talk. There is only victory or defeat. Meanwhile, on the Krex command ship, Admiral Thex received reports about the arriving human fleet with barely concealed amusement. His intelligence officers had quickly identified the newcomers as a species from a backwater system that had only achieved faster-than-light travel within the past century. 21 ships? Thex laughed, his reptilian features twisted in contempt. These humans must be desperate for attention to challenge the Krex Empire with such a pathetic force. Are they some kind of mercenary group working for the Volani? The intelligence officer checked his databank. Admiral, our records indicate that humans are classified as a primitive species from a high-gravity world. They have limited technology and no significant military achievements. This appears to be their first major deployment outside their home system. Thex nodded dismissively. Probably some foolish idealists who think they can make a difference through noble sacrifice. Order Battle Group 7 to intercept and destroy them quickly. I want to finish the planetary bombardment before these humans complicate our schedule. Back on the UNS Defiance, Morrison received updates from his reconnaissance teams. The Krex fleet was maintaining standard siege positions, focusing their attention on the planet below rather than protecting against external threats. Their formation showed arrogance and overconfidence, assuming no real danger could come from outside the system. "Admiral, the Krex are treating this like a simple extermination operation," Harper reported. "Their ships are spread out for maximum planetary coverage but minimum mutual support. They're not expecting coordinated resistance." Morrison smiled coldly. "Then they're about to get the education of their lives. All ships prepare for combat operations. Target priority is complete elimination of hostile forces threatening civilian populations." Captain Zara watched the human preparations with growing amazement and terror. These beings moved with mechanical precision, every action coordinated, toward maximum destructive efficiency. They spoke of eliminating threats and overwhelming force as casually as the Villani discussed gardening techniques. "Commander Harper," Zara asked nervously, "exactly what kind of world did your species evolve on?" Harper's laugh was grim. "Captain, humans come from what the galaxy classifies as a death world. Everything on Earth tries to kill you from the moment you're born. We learned to be very good at killing back." The first shots of the battle came from the Krex fleet as 12 heavy cruisers moved to intercept the human formation. Admiral Thex had ordered what he considered a generous response to deal with the primitive newcomers, expecting the engagement to last no more than a few minutes before the humans were vaporized. Admiral Morrison watched the Krex ships approach on his tactical display, noting their loose formation and predictable attack pattern. The enemy vessels moved like bullies who had never faced real opposition, confident in their size and firepower, but lacking any sense of tactical discipline. "All ships, engage at maximum range," Morrison ordered calmly. "Target their command. Systems first, engines second, weapons third. I want complete destruction, not just mission kills." The human fleet opened fire with weapons designed for the brutal reality of Earth's military conflicts. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic launchers crossed the vast distance of space in seconds, followed by guided missiles that could track targets through multiple course changes. Captain Steve Collins commanded the UNS Retribution, his heavy cruiser unleashing a devastating barrage that struck the lead Krex ship before it could even charge its weapons. The alien vessel simply disintegrated, torn apart by impacts that delivered more kinetic energy than most species used in their entire weapon systems. The second Krex cruiser managed to fire once before 3 human destroyers coordinated their attack and reduced it to expanding plasma. The third ship tried to retreat, but found itself caught in overlapping fields of fire from human vessels that had positioned themselves with mathematical precision. On the Krex command ship, Admiral Thex stared at his displays in shock as his battle group was systematically destroyed. In less than 4 minutes, 12 of his finest warships had been eliminated without managing to damage a single human vessel. The primitive newcomers moved and fought with a coordination that seemed impossible. "How are they doing this?" Thex demanded from his tactical officer. "Our ships have superior shields and armor. Our weapons should be cutting through their hulls like paper." The reptilian officer checked his sensors frantically. "Admiral, the human ships are using pure kinetic weapons at velocities we didn't think were possible. Their targeting systems are predicting our movements and placing shots exactly where our shields are weakest. It's like they've studied our technology for years." Commander Lisa Harper piloted the UNS Falcon through the debris field that had once been a Krex battle group, her sensors analyzing the wreckage for intelligence data. The alien ships were impressive in size, but built more for intimidation than actual combat effectiveness. Their weapons were designed to terrorize civilian populations, not fight against military targets that could shoot back. "Admiral, the Krex fleet is regrouping into a defensive formation around the planet," Harper reported. "They're using the orbital infrastructure as cover and positioning civilian areas between themselves and our approach vectors." Morrison's expression hardened. Using civilians as human shields was a war crime by Earth standards, and it told him everything he needed to know about Krek's military ethics. All ships, prepare for precision targeting operations. We're going to show them how real soldiers fight. Major Kelly Torres led the first boarding action against a Krek's command vessel that had been disabled by precise weapons fire. Her Marines moved through the ship's corridors like apex predators, their enhanced reflexes and physical strength overwhelming the alien crew. The Kreks were larger than humans, but had evolved on a low-gravity world where physical conflict was rare. Torres kicked down the door to the ship's bridge and found the Krek's captain cowering behind his command chair. The alien was nearly 8 feet tall with thick reptilian skin, but he moved like prey when faced with a human soldier who had trained for combat since childhood. "Surrender your vessel and provide access codes to your fleet communications," Torres ordered in translated Krek's language. "You have 10 seconds to comply before I consider you a hostile combatant." The Krek's captain looked at the small human female and made the fatal mistake of thinking her size indicated weakness. He reached for his sidearm and found himself on the deck with a broken arm before he could clear his holster. Torres had moved faster than his nervous system could track. "Poor choice," Torres said calmly, securing the weapon and hauling the much larger alien to his feet. "Now you get to watch while we use your ship's systems to coordinate the destruction of your fleet." On the planet's surface, Commander Ben Foster's ground forces established secure landing zones and began coordinating with Vellani civilians. The humans moved with military precision that amazed the gentle aliens, treating every evacuation like a combat operation where lives depended on perfect execution. Foster watched Vellani families boarding human transport ships and felt anger building at the Krek's Empire's casual cruelty. These people had never harmed anyone, had never even conceived of military conquest, yet they were facing extinction because some reptilian bullies wanted their resources. "All ground teams, maintain security perimeters," Foster ordered his troops. "The Kreks are going to get desperate when they realize they're losing and desperate enemies do stupid things." Captain Zara stood in the human command post, watching displays that showed the battle raging in orbit above her world. The humans fought with a combination of advanced technology and tactical brilliance that seemed almost supernatural. Every movement was calculated, every shot precisely placed for maximum effect. "Commander Foster, how is this possible?" Zara asked. "Your species has been in space for less than a century, yet you fight like you've been waging interstellar wars for thousands of years." Foster looked up from his tactical displays with grim humor. "Captain, humans have been fighting wars since before we discovered fire. We've had plenty of practice. The only thing that changed when we reached space was the size of the battlefield. Above them, the Krek's fleet was learning the difference between terrorizing helpless civilians and fighting an enemy that had evolved for warfare. Admiral Thex ordered his remaining ships to concentrate their fire on single human vessels, hoping to overwhelm their defenses through sheer volume of attack. The strategy failed completely. Human ships moved in coordinated patterns that made concentrated fire impossible, while their weapons systems picked apart Krek's formations with surgical precision. Every alien vessel that tried to close range found itself isolated and destroyed by overlapping fields of fire. Morrison watched the tactical display as the enemy fleet shrank steadily. The Kreks had started with 200 ships and superior positioning, but they were fighting like pirates who had never faced organized resistance. Their formations dissolved under pressure, their communications broke down under stress, and their morale collapsed when they realized they were facing extinction. "Admiral, the Krek's command ship is requesting terms for surrender," Harper reported. Morrison's smile was cold as winter space. "Tell them we don't negotiate with species that use civilian populations as shields. They can surrender unconditionally or join their friends in the debris field." The last Krek's warship exploded in a brilliant flash of light above Velios Prime, marking the end of what the humans would later call the 4-Hour War. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiance, watching the debris field that had once been a fleet of 200 enemy vessels. Not a single human ship had been lost, and casualties numbered exactly 0. Admiral Thex floated in an escape pod among the wreckage of his command ship, his reptilian features twisted with shock and disbelief. The mighty Krex Empire, terror of 12 star systems, had been completely destroyed by a species he had never heard of until today. The pod's emergency beacon transmitted his surrender signal on repeat, though he doubted the humans would show mercy to someone who had threatened to exterminate an entire civilization. Captain Zara emerged from the underground command center to find human engineering teams already working on the surface of her world. Chief Warrant Officer Amy Watson directed massive construction robots that were rebuilding damaged infrastructure with impossible speed and efficiency. The humans had brought not just weapons, but entire industrial complexes capable of restoring civilization. Captain Zara, we need to discuss permanent security arrangements for your system, Morrison said as he materialized through the transport beam. The human admiral was tall and intimidating, but his voice carried genuine concern for Volani welfare. The Krex Empire will send reinforcements when they learn about this defeat. We need to be ready. Zara felt overwhelmed by the rapid pace of human planning. A few hours ago, her people had been facing extinction, and now these strange beings were talking about rebuilding her world and preparing for future conflicts. Admiral Morrison, we cannot ask you to station your fleet here permanently. You have your own people to protect, Morrison smiled grimly. Captain, humanity learned a long time ago that evil grows stronger when good people do nothing. We're not leaving until this system is secure from any possible threat. The human construction crews worked around the clock, using techniques and equipment designed for rapid deployment in hostile environments. Within days, defensive installations stronger than anything in Volani history rose from the ruins of their cities. The humans built orbital weapon platforms, planetary shield generators, and military bases that could withstand siege warfare. Chief Watson supervised the installation of a massive defense grid that surrounded Velios Prime like a protective shell. The Volani watched in amazement as human technology transformed their peaceful world into an impregnable fortress. Every weapon system was designed to protect civilian populations while destroying any hostile force that dared approach. Chief Watson, these defenses seem far beyond what any peaceful species would need, Zara observed as she toured the construction sites. Are you preparing for a war that hasn't started yet? Watson paused in her work and looked at the Volani captain with patient understanding. Captain, humans learned that the best way to prevent war is to be so prepared for it that your enemies choose easier targets. These defenses will keep your people safe for the next 1,000 years. Captain Peter Hayes commanded the UNS Liberty as it established permanent patrol routes through Volani space. His ship and its escort group would remain in the system indefinitely, ready to respond to any threat that emerged. When Volani officials questioned the duration of human protection, Hayes explained that humanity didn't abandon its allies. Captain Hayes, surely your government cannot commit military resources indefinitely to protect a single system, the Volani defense coordinator argued. The cost must be enormous for your people. Hayes checked his navigation displays as the Liberty completed another patrol circuit. Sir, the cost of letting good people die when we could save them is much higher than the price of keeping ships in space. Earth Command considers this system a permanent strategic interest. News of humanity's intervention spread throughout known space faster than the human fleet had traveled to reach Velios Prime. Species that had dismissed humans as primitive, backwater dwellers suddenly found themselves reviewing intelligence files with growing alarm. The beings they had ignored had just eliminated one of the galaxy's most feared military forces without suffering a single casualty. The Altarian Republic, which had politely refused to help the Volani, sent urgent diplomatic messages requesting meetings with human representatives. The Xanthan Federation offered generous trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. The Killian Assembly invited human ambassadors to their capital world with promises of technological exchange. Commander Jennifer Stone led the diplomatic mission to establish formal relations with the Vellani government. The discussions revealed fundamental differences in how species approached galactic citizenship. While other civilizations focused on trade agreements and territorial boundaries, humans emphasized mutual defense pacts and collective security arrangements. Commander Stone, we appreciate everything humanity has done for our people, Captain Zara said during the formal treaty negotiations. But we must ask what you expect in return for this protection. Nothing in the galaxy comes without a price. Stone studied the Vellani delegation with the analytical gaze of a career diplomat. Captain, humanity expects you to remain peaceful and never threaten innocent populations. In return, we guarantee that no hostile force will ever harm your people. Again, it's a simple arrangement. The Krex Empire, what remained of it after losing their entire invasion fleet, attempted to gather intelligence on human capabilities through surviving ship logs and prisoner interrogations. Their findings painted a terrifying picture of a species that had been preparing for interstellar warfare since before they achieved faster-than-light travel. Krex intelligence analysts studied battle recordings that showed human ships moving with coordination that seemed almost supernatural. Every weapon fired with precision that indicated targeting systems beyond anything the Krex had imagined possible. The humans fought like they had been born for warfare, which their analysts realized was probably true. The humans come from what? They call a death world, the chief intelligence officer reported to the Krex High Command. Everything on their planet tries to kill them from birth. They evolved for constant warfare and developed technology specifically designed to eliminate threats with overwhelming force. Admiral Morrison received new orders from Earth Command as he prepared to establish permanent bases throughout the region. The message was clear and direct. Humanity had decided to become the galaxy's protector, whether other species wanted protection or not. The age of aggressive empires terrorizing peaceful civilizations was ending. All ships, prepare for extended deployment, Morrison announced to his fleet. We're not going home until every peaceful species in this sector is safe from predators like the Krex. Earth has decided that protecting innocent people is worth any cost. The human fleet spread out across dozens of star systems, establishing bases and patrol routes that would guard trade lanes and peaceful worlds for generations. Species that had lived in fear for centuries suddenly found themselves under the protection of beings who viewed military supremacy as a moral obligation rather than a political tool. The galaxy was learning that when Deathworlders offered friendship, they meant it forever, and when they promised protection, they would die before breaking their word. 6 months after the Battle of Velios Prime, the galaxy had been transformed beyond recognition. Human fleets patrolled trade routes that had been plagued by pirates and raiders for generations. Species that had cowered in fear from aggressive empires now traveled freely under the protection of beings who treated warfare as a sacred duty rather than a political tool. General Chris Murphy commanded human operations throughout the sector from his headquarters on Velios Prime, which had become the center of the new Galactic Defense Network. The former Vellani homeworld now hosted the largest military academy outside Earth space, where representatives from dozens of peaceful species learned human tactical doctrine adapted for non-Deathworlder physiology. The academy's training programs shocked alien students with their intensity and thoroughness. Species that had never conceived of military strategy found themselves studying the principles of overwhelming force projection, combined arms tactics, and the moral philosophy of protective warfare. The humans taught that the greatest kindness was the complete elimination of those who threatened innocence. Captain Zara, now bearing the honorary rank of Commodore in the Human Defense Alliance, served as ambassador to other peaceful species throughout the region. She had learned to speak with quiet authority about the realities of galactic security, explaining to frightened civilizations that sometimes The most compassionate action was total war against aggressors. The humans saved us not through negotiation or compromise, but by destroying every ship that threatened our people, Zara told the assembled delegates of the Peaceful Species Coalition. They showed us that true peace comes only when evil beings fear the consequences of their actions. The Villani had become humanity's closest allies and most effective advocates, serving as living proof that human protection worked exactly as advertised. Their world had grown from a refugee camp to the sector's most secure and prosperous system, defended by weapons that could destroy fleets and protected by beings who would die before allowing harm to come to their friends. Director Ashley Morgan oversaw the establishment of the Galactic Protection Protocols from her office in the rebuilt Villani capital. The document defined humanity's commitment to defending peaceful species against aggressive empires, with a clarity that left no room for misunderstanding. Any act of aggression against human allies would result in immediate and total military intervention. The protocols made clear that humanity distinguished between legitimate self-defense and predatory expansion. Species were free to protect their own territory and resources, but attempting to conquer others would bring swift retaliation from the human fleet. The galaxy's political landscape had shifted permanently toward peace through superior firepower. Colonel Tony Rodriguez commanded the permanent garrison on Velios Prime, where human and Villani engineers worked together to build the sector's most advanced defensive systems. The base served as both protection for the Villani and a warning to potential aggressors about the consequences of threatening human allies. The human military presence had grown from emergency response to permanent occupation of strategic systems throughout the region. Every important trade route now had human patrol ships, every peaceful world had access to human protection, and every aggressive empire had learned to avoid territories marked with Earth's flag. The Krex Empire, what remained of it, had retreated to the galaxy's outer rim after losing not just their invasion fleet, but 3 follow-up expeditions that had tried to avenge the defeat at Velios Prime. Other predatory species had similarly withdrawn from territories now under human protection, unwilling to face extinction for the sake of conquest. Admiral Morrison received regular reports from his expanded fleet as it established bases and patrol routes across dozens of star systems. The humans had created a zone of absolute safety that grew larger every month, incorporating new species that requested protection and abandoning territories that proved too dangerous to defend effectively. General Murphy, we're receiving another distress signal from the far side of the galaxy, Morrison announced during their weekly strategic planning meeting. The Kythera Republic is under attack by something called the Void Hunters. Same pattern as the Villani situation, peaceful species, facing extinction from aggressive neighbors. Murphy studied the tactical displays showing human fleet positions across known space. The defense network was strong enough to handle routine piracy and minor conflicts, but a major deployment would require pulling ships from existing patrol routes. How many battle groups can we spare without compromising current commitments? 3 full battle groups plus carrier support, Morrison replied. The response time would be 2 weeks transit, assuming maximum faster-than-light speed. Sir, this would be our largest deployment since the Krex campaign. Murphy nodded thoughtfully. Admiral, prepare the deployment orders. We didn't build this fleet to sit in safe harbors while innocent people die. The Void Hunters are about to learn the same lesson we taught the Krex Empire. The orders went out across the human fleet within hours, and 3 battle groups began, preparations for immediate departure to Kythera space. The galaxy's communication networks carried news of the deployment, reminding every species that human protection extended far beyond their immediate allies. Captain Peter Hayes received command of the expedition aboard the UNS Liberty, his ship now veteran of dozens of peacekeeping operations throughout the sector. The human response had become routine, predictable, and absolutely reliable. When peaceful species called for help, humanity answered with overwhelming force. Captain Hayes, the Kythera are reporting that the Void Hunters use different tactics. than most aggressive species, Commander Stone briefed him during the mission planning session. They apparently strip mine entire star systems and leave nothing behind for survivors. Complete extermination followed by resource extraction. Hayes checked his tactical computers and reviewed the intelligence reports from Kythera Space. Commander, it sounds like the Void Hunters are about to discover why humanity classifies genocide as the ultimate war crime. We don't negotiate with species that practice extinction as policy. As the human fleet prepared to depart for another rescue mission, Captain Zara stood on the observation deck of the Villani orbital station and watched the warships move through space with deadly grace. The sight no longer frightened her as it had 6 months ago. Now it filled her with pride and security, knowing that these powerful vessels existed solely to protect innocent life. The galaxy had learned fundamental truths about Deathworlders that would reshape interstellar politics for millennia. They didn't just survive in hostile environments. They eliminated the sources of hostility. They didn't seek conquest or domination, but they would accept nothing less than absolute safety for those under their protection. When aliens had sent a call for aid, they received something beyond their wildest expectations, a species for whom overwhelming protective force was not just military doctrine, but moral imperative. The age of galactic predators was ending, replaced by an era where evil beings learned to fear the consequences of their actions. The age of human protection had begun, and it would last as long as innocent people needed defenders willing to fight and die for strangers they had never met.